Before we get into today's edition of Just the Truth, let me tell you about the latest special from Michael and Dale at MyPillow. MyPillow is glad to announce that their Christmas extravaganza is continuing. Get this season's flannel sheets for as low as $59.98 when you use promo code Joey. And they're not going to last very long at this price. The famous My Slippers, they haven't been on sale for over a year. They're regularly priced at $119.98. Now, with promo code Joey, you can get them for $59.98. And the 6-piece towel set, these towels, you've heard me talk about them. They're very soft, but yet they are absorbent. Most times, you're not going to get a towel this absorbent. When you use promo code Joey, when you go to MyPillow.com or call 800-893-4059, you're going to get them for just $29.98 with promo code Joey. $29.98 for a 6-piece towel set. With hundreds of MyPillow products, there's something for everyone on your Christmas list. Bathrobes, duvets, quilts, down comforters, and so much more. Go to MyPillow.com or call 800-893-4059. Use promo code Joey to get the very best deal on every single item, and Merry Christmas to you. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Breaking news, at least 2 people were killed and 6 others injured in a school shooting in Madison, Wisconsin yesterday, with police saying the suspected shooter was found dead at the scene. Also, Manhattan Supreme Court Justice Juan Merchant has refused to toss out President-elect Donald Trump's hush money case based on the U.S. Supreme Court's immunity ruling recently. Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas is demanding answers from Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin over the Biden administration's outrageous decision to sell off border wall materials for literally pennies on the dollar. The battle of the drones, a New Jersey pilot lost control after an encounter with an unidentified drone. We have the details for you. And we're learning more about the 1,500 or more people Joe Biden granted clemency to last week. They include multiple public officials and some Democrat politicians, including judges convicted of corruption cases. And finally, TikTok is asking the U.S. Supreme Court to block a law that would force its Chinese parent company, ByteDance, to sell off the app by January 19th or face a total ban in the United States.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
Judge Juan Merchant in New York City yesterday rejected President-elect Donald Trump's request to dismiss charges brought against him by the Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg. We have all those details for you. First, though, a tragic and heartbreaking school shooting yesterday in Madison, Wisconsin. A 17-year-old student at Abundant Life Christian School opened fire, killing 2 people, another student and a teacher. 6 more people injured, including 2 students who were left with life-threatening wounds. The shooter was found dead at the scene, and police believe the shooter took their own life. The whole thing went down just before 11 a.m. in a school of about 400 students. Madison Police Chief Sean Barnes said police arrived on the scene within 3 minutes of getting the call, but by then, the damage was already done.
Today, around 10:57 a.m., our officers were responding to a call of an active shooter at the Abundant Life Christian School here in Madison. When officers arrived, they found multiple victims suffering from gunshot wounds. We train on this almost quarterly. The last time we trained on this as commanders was approximately 2 weeks ago. The protocols are simple. Stop the killing, stop the dying, find out who's doing this. And the officers did that, and they did that adamantly. We had officers from around the county and around the state that came in support of this particular incident. Officers located a juvenile who they believe was responsible for this deceased in the building. Additionally, the officers began administering life-saving efforts to anyone who was wounded and making sure that those persons were transported. What we know is that a total of about 7 persons were transported from the scene to area hospitals for treatment. We believe the shooter was a student at the school, yes. We're still going through methodically clearing that school, clearing every vehicle, and making certain that there's no other threats to this community, which we believe there are none. To be honest with you, I'm feeling a little dismayed now. So close to Christmas. Every child, every person in that building is a victim and will be a victim forever. And these types of trauma don't just go away. And we need to figure out and try to piece together what exactly happened. And right now, my heart is heavy for my community. My heart is heavy for Madison, and we have to come together as a community and figure out what happened here and make sure that it doesn't happen in any other place that should be a refuge for students in our community.
This is just another reminder of what's happening in our schools. Parents like Bethany Hyman rushed to the scene, terrified, praying that their kids were safe. She said it best, your world stops for a minute, nothing else matters. And she's right. No parent should have to face this fear. School official Barbara Weirs described the shooting as something that's rocked our school community, and she says, let's not forget, this isn't just affecting one school, this affects every community in America. These tragedies leave scars on families, teachers, students, the entire country. We got to take a hard look at what's really going on in our culture. Why are our kids so broken that they're turning to violence? And it's not about the tools they're used. It's not about the guns. And that was, of course, the first response from the left. It's about what's happening in these kids' lives. And while the left screams for stricter gun control, and we heard that immediately from Joe Biden, President Biden, of course, wasted no time calling for stricter gun laws. He called the shooting shocking and unconscionable. Well, that's right, it is. He said, we cannot continue to accept this as normal. Well, Joe, we agree, it's not normal. But banning guns is not going to fix this. We need to address, as Kamala Harris likes to talk about, the root causes. And that means taking a serious look at what's really happening to our kids. And here's the thing. This shooting happened at a Christian school, a place where kids should feel safe, loved, and protected. They should feel that way in any school, regardless of whether it's a Christian school or one of our public schools. The fact that this violence, though, has invaded even our faith-based schools tells you something is deeply wrong in our society. We've got to talk about school security. Abundant Life Christian School, according to reports, did not have metal detectors, nor do they have a school resource officer. They had other security measures, but clearly it wasn't enough in this case. It's time to get serious about protecting our kids. We need trained, armed security in every school, whether they're private, whether they're public, whether they're Christian. We have to protect our kids. We protect our politicians. We protect our executives, our banks, our celebrities. They all have armed security. Why not our kids? And let's take a minute and give credit where credit is due to the first responders who rushed to the scene. Madison police were actually training for an active school shooter situation when they got the call yesterday. They got there fast, but sometimes even 3 minutes is not fast enough. These officers, these firefighters, these EMTs, everybody who responded to this scene yesterday and saw these horrible images of this young child and of this teacher who had been gunned down, and of this child who had taken her own life, apparently, they deserve our gratitude for what they had to do yesterday. In other breaking news last night, Manhattan Supreme Court Justice Juan has refused to toss out President-elect Donald Trump's hush money case based on the U.S. Supreme Court's immunity ruling. Trump's attorneys argue that the case should be thrown out based on the recent Supreme Court ruling on presidential immunity. The court made it crystal clear that former presidents have substantial immunity for official acts committed while in office. Trump's legal team pointed out that the evidence related to his official duties was used in this case and it should have been inadmissible. But Judge Juan had a different understanding of what the ruling means. He decided to just ignore it. He claimed that the evidence was related entirely to unofficial conduct and that it doesn't receive immunity protections. Really, Judge? We're supposed to believe that testimony from former White House Communications Director Hope Hicks, for example, Trump's presidential Twitter post, and his response to FEC inquiries, these are all unofficial? And get this, Merchant went even further. saying that even if it was official conduct, the evidence didn't intrude on the function of the executive branch. Well, sure, because dragging a former president through a politically motivated witch hunt during a presidential transition doesn't interfere with anything, right? Stephen Chung, Trump's spokesman and incoming White House communications director, kind of hit the nail on the head. He called Merchan's decision a direct violation of the Supreme Court's decision on immunity and a result of the deeply conflicted judge overseeing the case. He's right. This case is lawfare, pure lawfare, designed to obstruct Trump and to distract from this presidential transition. Remember, this all started with those 34 counts of falsifying business records related to alleged hush money payments. It's a case that was first cooked up by Cyrus Vance, then handed off to Alvin Bragg, who's been literally hell-bent on going after Trump since day one. That's all Alvin Bragg can think about. And after an unprecedented 6-week trial, they got a guilty verdict. You have to remember, though, it was in New York City, with a jury handpicked from one of the most liberal places in America. What did anyone expect to happen? Trump's attorneys have it right when they say this case would never have been brought if it weren't for Trump's political views and who he was. And the threat he poses to the corrupt establishment was a part of that decision as well, I'm sure. This isn't about justice. We know that. It's about stopping Donald Trump. It's about trying to embarrass Donald Trump. It's about to try to take Donald Trump out. It didn't affect him during the campaign. The American people kind of sent a message to people like Alvin Bragg and Judge Juan Merkin, didn't he? He's promised to drain the swamp and put America first. That's what we've asked him to do. We can't allow some judge to get in the way of that. I'm sure there'll be appeals. Your comments are welcome on the Firmin Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. If you've been putting off a visit to PhD Weight Loss, now's your time because it comes with an amazing free gift. Joey Hudson here. During December, the founder of PhD Weight Loss, Dr. Ashley Lucas, is giving the first 100 people to sign up for a consultation a free weight loss and energy supplement bundle. What a great gift. Do what I did. Take control now before heading into the indulgent holiday season. Get a grasp and avoid the holiday pounds. I dropped over 30 pounds and I'm not worried about parties and overeating because my PhD coach taught me coping mechanisms to help me enjoy holiday events without gaining the weight. Best of all, I never took a weight loss drug. I'm not dependent on a prescription. And I was never hungry. PhD Weight Loss is not about depriving yourself. Lose the awful belly fat, gain energy, and avoid weight-related health issues. You will feel so amazing about yourself and truly enjoy the holiday season. PhD Weight Loss. Ask about the free gift when you book your consultation. Call 864-644-1900. That's 864-644-1900 or go to myphdweightloss.com. Continuing today's show, 50 years later, a man who grew up in suburban Detroit tried to return a very overdue baseball book to his boyhood library. The answer from the librarian is, hey, just keep it, and there's no fine. Chuck Hildebrand, he's 63 years old now, from Chicago, said he visited the public library in Warren while in town for Thanksgiving carrying a book titled Baseball's Zaniest Stars. He had borrowed it back in 1974 as a 13-year-old baseball nut, but never returned it, he said. He said, when you're moving with a bunch of books, you're not examining every book. You throw them in a box and go. But 5 or 6 years ago, I was going through the bookshelf, and there was a Dewey Decimal Library number on the book. What is this, he said. Inside the book was a slip of paper indicating that it was due back at the Warren Library on December the 4th, 1974. Hildebrand says he decided to keep the book until this year, 2024, the 50th anniversary, and then try to return it. All is forgiven, though, the library director, Oksana Urban, said. She said, some people never come back to face the music, she said, of patrons with overdue books, but there was really no music to face because he and the book were erased from our system, she said, which means Baseball's Zaniest Stars is back on Mr. Hildebrand's shelf. In return, he's now trying to raise $4,564 for Reading is Fundamental, a nonprofit literacy group. The amount roughly represents a 50-year overdue library fine. Hildebrand is seeding the effort by starting off with the first donation of $457. You know, interesting that I saw this story because just last week, I'm going through some books, and I find a book that I had taken out about flying from my high school, Riverside High School, about the same amount of time, not quite 50 years, but in that same period of time, in the mid 70s or so. I got to go back and look at the date. And I even thought then, should I take it back? What should I do with it? So maybe I need to run by Riverside High School's library and talk with the librarian. What do you think? Text me, email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. Here's something that should outrage every single law-abiding American. President Joe Biden, we talked a lot last week about his pardoning his son, Hunter. And then a few days later, Biden granted clemency to a bunch of Democrat politicians and what we're learning to be corrupt public officials. People who, let's just be honest, should be spending their time in prison for the grievances in which they were found guilty. So let's look a little closer. Among the 1,500 criminals whose sentences Joe Biden commuted, we've got at least 3 Democrat politicians that we know of so far. 1,500, it takes a little time to go through these. Several other crooked officials are on the list as well. And this isn't just petty corruption. We're talking about bribery, fraud, and just outright exploitation of their positions of power. So let's take, for example, Michael Conahan. He's a former Luzerne County judge. You might remember him from the disgusting Kids for Cash scandal. This guy took millions of dollars in kickbacks to send thousands of kids to private detention centers that he was an investor in. He literally destroyed people's lives. One victim's mother, Sandy Fonzo, said that her son committed suicide because of Conahan's actions. And what does Biden do? He commutes his sentence. It's a slap in the face to every family that suffers under the abuse or from this abuse of power. Think about that. This lady's son committed suicide because this crook of a judge sent him to a detention center only because this judge needed to make some money. He was going to get a kickback for sending kids to this detention center. Even Democrat Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, not exactly conservative, said that Joe Biden got it absolutely wrong and caused a lot of pain in his state. When you've got Democrats calling out Biden, you know it's pretty bad, don't you? Then we got William Boylan Jr., a former Democrat New York State Assemblyman. He was sentenced to 14 years for bribery, fraud, and conspiracy. And who else did Biden let off the hook? Anis Blamur, a former Florida State Senate candidate who stole over $1.6 million from victims in the Haitian community. This guy even used their personal information to rack up charges on 24 credit cards. And Biden thinks these people deserve a second chance? Really? They deserve a second chance? This corrupt judge deserves a second chance? I wonder what criteria the Biden administration and whoever was in charge of vetting these people, I wonder what criteria they used. Yes, supposedly they were nonviolent crimes. But when your crime leads to suicide of some young child, that is not nonviolent to me. The other one, Jimmy DeMora, a former Cuyahoga County commissioner out of Ohio. This guy was taking bribes for over a decade, cash, home improvements, fancy meals, prostitutes, gambling trips, you name it, he took it. Even Obama denied this guy clemency. But good old Joe Biden decided to let him off the hook. And the hits just keep on coming. There's Rita Crunwell, a former controller of Dixon, Illinois, who stole $53.7 million from her city. $53.7 million of taxpayers' dollars she stole. Local officials are furious that Joe Biden has wiped the slate clean for this woman. The city manager said it cuts open a deep scar for their community, and he's right. These are not victimless crimes. These are betrayals of public trust that ruin lives and ruin communities, and Joe Biden thinks it's okay. Joe Biden thinks they need a second chance. A second chance to do the same thing over again? Wow. Really, Joe? Since when do we give corrupt politicians a pass? This isn't about fairness. This is about rewarding Democrat cronies while ignoring the victims of their crimes. I mean, wonder how many victims there are in this Illinois town that lost $53.7 million because of this crook. There are a lot of victims there. Every single person, every citizen in that city is a victim. His excuse, Joe Biden's excuse, he claims these people have successfully reintegrated into their families and communities. Well, guess what? The victims of their corruption, they don't get a second chance. They're left to pick up the pieces of their lives while these criminals walk free, and now Joe Biden gives them a pat on the back. It's pure corruption at the highest levels. We're not talking about justice here. We're not talking about accountability. We're talking about turning a blind eye, and that's exactly what Joe Biden did. Your comments are welcome on the Firmin Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Firmin Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Firmin Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Firmin Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Firmin, Matthew Firmin. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Firmin Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Firmin Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Firmin Ford online at firminford.com, firminford.com. Okay, I'm going to warn you up front. If you want your blood pressure up, stick around for this segment. If you don't, you might want to mute it temporarily. Don't do that, though. Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas is demanding answers from Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin over the Biden administration's outrageous decision to sell off border wall materials for pennies on the dollar. I told you about this last week. They're doing this ahead of President-elect Donald Trump's return to office, knowing that Trump 2.0 is going to go back to building the wall. It just infuriates me to think about how crazy this is. The Biden administration is literally scrambling to get rid of the materials in these final weeks of the Biden administration's tenure in Washington, knowing that Donald Trump is going to make that his day one priority. Senator Cotton sent a letter to Austin yesterday, and he's not mincing words. He's demanding full accountability and transparency from the Department of Defense, saying he wants to know exactly how these border wall materials are being disposed of and who's buying them. I mean, there's stories all around now of people buying a panel of the wall for $5, and now the reports are that they're calling the Trump, some of the Trump administration, the Trump transition team, saying, hey, guess what? I'll sell it back to you. Let me tell you, Tom Cotton is right to ask these questions. It's not just wasteful. It's a national security disaster. Every American taxpayer should be enraged about this. Again, we talked about it last week. Fox News has reported that these sections of border wall are being sold as scrap metal for pennies on the dollar. Can you believe it? Perfectly good materials that were meant to protect our country. They're being dumped like garbage. And why? Because Joe Biden and his administration knows that Trump is coming back. They're going to do everything they can to sabotage his effort to secure our border. A Department of Defense official claimed that about 60% of these materials have been given to U.S. Customs and Border Protection in Texas and California. But what about the other 40%? Well, they're being sold through a company called GovPlanet It's a marketplace for surplus government equipment. It's a private entity. And the DOD says that they can't stop these sales because the materials aren't owned by the government anymore, meaning they've already signed them over. These idiots have already given this stuff away. Sounds like a convenient excuse to me. Senator Cotton isn't buying it either. He's demanding that Austin preserve all records related to these sales. He wants a full accounting of where the materials went, who bought them, and how much they're being sold for, and he is right to do so. Because come January 20th, when President Trump's back in office, we're going to need those records to expose the egregious waste of taxpayers' money and who's responsible for it. President Trump's not staying silent either. At a news conference yesterday, he called out Biden, saying that this action is almost criminal, and he called on Joe Biden to stop further sales of these materials.
The administration is trying to sell it for 5 cents on the dollar, knowing that we're getting ready to put it up. And what they're doing is really an act. It's almost a criminal act. They know we're going to use it, and if we don't have it, we're going to have to rebuild it, and it'll cost double what it cost years ago, and that's hundreds of millions of dollars, because you're talking about a lot of wall. I built much more than I said I was going to build, but then after it was built, I said, we can do some more, because it's sort of like water, people flow through, and that will pretty much really take care of it. And what happened is they just, as you see, they're trying to sell it for 5 cents on the dollar, and that's really, that has nothing to do with a smooth transition. That has to do with people really trying to stop our nation. And all it means really is that we're going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars more, not even talking about the time. Time would be pretty long, but we'll spend hundreds of millions of dollars more on building the same wall that we already have. And people have already come back to us that have deals at 5 cents and 4 cents, and one guy at 3 cents on the dollar, and they offered to sell it back to us at more money than it costs us to build substantially. Can you believe it? So they make a deal with the United States to buy it for pennies, and then they call us and they say, do you want to buy it back? We'll sell it back to you for hundreds of dollars a foot. Hundreds of dollars, from pennies to hundreds of dollars a foot. And we can't let this take place. So I'm asking today Joe Biden to please stop selling the wall. We're going to use that to create a strong barrier, and it worked. That's why our numbers were so good. It really worked, and it worked well.
As usual, Donald Trump spot on there. I mean, again, it's infuriating to think about. They know that Trump is going to use these materials to finish the wall. So what do? They're trying to make sure that he can't do it. Trump predicted it will cost hundreds of millions of dollars more to replace these wall portions, much more than what they cost, 4, 5, 6 years ago when he had them produced to begin with. And who's going to pay for it? You and I are, the American taxpayer. Folks, this is what we're dealing with. An administration that cares more about playing politics than protecting our border. They're willing to sell off critical materials just to spite Trump and his supporters. It's a finger in the eye. And let's not forget the border crisis we're facing right now. Millions of illegal crossings, drugs pouring in, crime skyrocketing. And what's Biden's answer? Sell off the wall and try to do it as quickly as possible before Donald Trump rides back into Washington. Senator Cotton and other Republicans, I hope they really do hold these people accountable. I hope they really will force the Department of Defense and whoever else is involved to come up with the records to show who bought it and where they came from and how we're going to get it back. And look, I hope that Joe Biden will listen to Donald Trump and he will stop it. He'll step in and stop it. He'll figure out just how egregious this is. He talks about his legacy, what little bit of a legacy he has left. If he were wanting to do the right thing, he would step in right now and stop it. You agree? Text me, email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. Hey, here's an update on the story of these mysterious drones in the New Jersey, New York area. You know, sometimes truth is stranger than fiction. And these mystery drones showing up in restricted airspace is really raising a whole lot of questions. Doesn't appear to be many answers right now. A drone pilot named Michael B., who's a podcaster and a paranormal investigator, claims that he was out flying near the Picatinny Arsenal, an Army facility in New Jersey, and he spotted this larger unidentified object, what he thinks is another drone, that it's just kind of hanging out in the sky. So what does he do? He decides to get a closer look, and he flies his drone in the vicinity of this other one. But not 3 minutes into his flight, he says, his drone suddenly lost power and started falling out of the sky. Michael B. said he had a full battery life when he launched, but then he got a warning on his controller and boom, dead battery. His drone goes down, but here's the odd thing. While his drone got shut down, that mystery drone kept right on flying, he says. It didn't even flinch. So what's going on here? We know that the Army facility requested a temporary flight restriction for the airspace until December the 26th because of all the drone sightings. The FAA has confirmed that they're looking into it. But how is it that a private drone gets grounded while these mystery drones keep buzzing around? They allow them to keep flying. Do you agree there's something odd here? It just doesn't add up. Are we looking at classified military exercises? Is this some kind of test to detect or evade drone detection? Former CIA officer Laura Ballman thinks that that might be the case. And let's not forget that these mystery drones aren't exactly being subtle. I mean, they're flying with navigation lights on in some very crowded areas. So whoever's behind this, they're not trying too hard to stay hidden. New Jersey State Senator Joe Pinocchio is demanding answers. He's even written to President-elect Trump to get the federal government involved. He said that he's absolutely concerned about this, and he has constituents who are concerned about it. And evidently, the Biden administration has kind of been ignoring his request. And if these drones are flying around the skies, drones that can't be identified, to me, that's a security problem, right? I mean, that's even more troublesome if they know that they're flying out there, they don't know who they are, than the fact that if it is some type of military exercise. If these things can bypass restrictions while shutting down other drones, that's kind of troubling, isn't it? The FAA says that they're investigating and warned that the illegal drone operators could face fines up to $75,000. But let's be real here. The government doesn't seem to know where these drones are coming from, and people are rightly frustrated. We're talking about weeks of sighting and no clear answers. I mean, how long have we been talking about this story now? Here's another twist. Some drones can be hacked or modified to bypass geofencing restrictions. In fact, a Chinese national was just charged for using a hacked drone to take photos of a Space Force base. So are we dealing with foreign interference? Could it be espionage? These are serious questions, and we need answers. Meanwhile, the Biden administration's response has been, well, we're not quite sure. John Kirby said that many of the sightings are manned aircraft being flown legally. Many, he said, but what about the rest? He was hesitant to say that all are legal. Whether you're replacing a broken appliance or maybe you're just upgrading, you're totally remodeling the kitchen, when it's time to get those new appliances, when you're ready for them, you don't want to have to wait weeks or even months to get started using them, right? Well, that's not the case when you shop with my friends at Discounted Appliance Warehouse. With over 11,000 square feet and 1,500 appliances at any given time, you can buy today and use today quite often. I'm talking about shopping with my friends at Discounted Appliance Warehouse in Pickens. It's worth the short drive over to Pickens. Jeff, Johnny, Kyle, the whole team over there, they'll take good care of you. They have an award-winning service department, expert installation, extended warranties, and at Discounted Appliance Warehouse, they treat you like family. You're more than just a credit card swipe to all the team over there. Discounted Appliance Warehouse, they're proud to offer Speed Queen, the only washer and dryers with manufacturer's warranties that cover parts and labor. You owe it to yourself, if you're looking for a new appliance, to head over to Pickens to Discounted Appliance Warehouse online at dawpickens.com, dawpickens.com. On our text line, Fred writes, good morning and Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you, Fred. Is the drone situation akin to Chinese spy balloon 2.0? The feds and Biden are all pulling the Sergeant Schwartz I know nothing routine. The Dems are leaving Washington and China is losing its grip on Washington. Are they just trying to get all they can while they can? Fred writes, we're a long way from 9/11-2001 when one couldn't get within 10 miles of critical infrastructure sites, soft targets. Today, we just let unknown objects fly unabated wherever they want. That seems to be the case, Fred. Appreciate your text. Albert writes, the president urges Congress to pass more laws to protect our children from gun crimes. Didn't he just pardon a convicted criminal of a gun crime? He did, Albert, one Hunter Biden. Albert writes, a criminal whose firearm was tossed into the trash where a child could have found it. Way to go, Joe. Once again, you have proven what a hypocrite you are. Your comments are welcome as well. You can text them. You can email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. Now, here's something that's just a little too rich to ignore. We talked yesterday about the $15 million defamation settlement between ABC News, their so-called anchor, George Stephanopoulos, and President-elect Donald Trump. We talked about how they had to issue an apology. It was a written apology. It was never mentioned by George Stephanopoulos on his Sunday morning news show. Never mentioned it. That should have been part of the ruling, was that he had to mention it. He had to give the apology on the same show where he made the accusation to begin with, right? ABC and the judge, I guess the court didn't see that. However, I'll tell you someone else who's not mentioning it, and that's the ladies of The View, who are usually outspoken on things like this, right? They, too, decided to just completely ignore it. The same show that's been trashing Trump for years, calling him a convicted felon, couldn't find the time to mention that their own network and their star news anchor had to fork over $15 million plus $1 million for legal fees, and issue a statement of what they're calling a statement of regret for lies. Remember, Stephanopoulos repeated Trump was liable for rape, not once, not twice, but 10 times during the interview with South Carolina Representative Nancy Mace, and that was false. The jury had found Trump liable for sexual abuse, and in New York, there's a big difference between sexual abuse and rape, although the whole case should have never even been brought forward. But The View not having an opinion on this, The View not commenting on this, The View crickets. They had time to talk about New Jersey's drone mystery. They even talked about Mitt Romney's latest pearl of wisdom about giving Trump a chance. But the scandal involving their own network, their own star, nope, didn't happen. Not a word. And you know why? You know why they're ignoring this, folks? Because it's a massive embarrassment. Their network got caught. Their anchor, their little star got caught. And now they're paying for it. Literally. $15 million to a presidential foundation and another $1 million to cover Trump's legal fees. And don't forget, they had to put out a public statement of regret. Don't you love how they called that a statement of regret rather than an apology? But regardless, it was a statement admitting that they were wrong. Instead of addressing this colossal blunder, the co-host of The View, the outspoken Joy Behar, Sonny Hostin, Anna Navarro, and the rest, Whoopi Goldberg, they swept it under an ABC rug. Why? It's real simple. It doesn't fit their narrative. These are the same people who call Trump every name in the book, who cheer on every lawsuit against him, and who practically foam at the mouth whenever a new allegation pops up. They love it. It just makes their day. But when their own network gets nailed for defamation, when their own network gets it wrong against this guy, they don't want to say anything about it. Suddenly it's time to talk about drones and Mitt Romney and anything but the case. They should have been made to talk about it. Some of these View co-hosts, they've even taken shots at other Trump critics for supposedly kissing the ring. Remember when Mika Brzezinski and Joe Scarborough went to Mar-a-Lago after the election? Remember how upset they got with them? How they felt betrayed? Anna Navarro, Sonny Hostin blasted them for it. But when their own network has to pay up and apologize for slandering Trump, suddenly they are at a loss for words. Do you find this just as amusing as I do? I'd love to get your comments. Text me. Email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. Leave me a message on the MyPillow message line, 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. And when you go to MyPillow.com, always use promo code Joey to get the very best price. We still have the Christmas extravaganza. MyPillow's happy to announce some of the great deals. For example, the slippers. Nothing better than to give someone that you love and it's hard to shop for a pair of my slippers. They very rarely are on sale. Michael and Dale has them now for $59.98 rather than the $119.98 that they usually are. But you have to use promo code Joey when you go to MyPillow.com or call 800-893-4059. They also have the flannel sheets as low as $59.98. They have everything: bathrobes, duvets, quilts, down comforters, and, of course, the standard MyPillows for a very great deal right now. My favorite, the 6-piece towel sets, back in stock for only $29.98. Again, always use promo code Joey. Keep those text messages, emails, and the messages on the MyPillow message line coming. So what's everybody else saying about this? The liberal media, they're still trying to figure out how to spin it. MSNBC legal analyst Barbara McQuaid says she's worried about the chilling effect this could have on people criticizing Trump. Oh, really? A chilling effect that it could have on what she's talking about or her other co-anchor friends, her other friends on other networks. It's real simple, folks. If you talk about the truth, you're not going to have to worry about this. It's those who are trying to stretch the truth, those who are constantly going after Donald Trump, regardless of what the facts are. Those are the ones who have to be careful. CBS, they have their own lawsuit that they're facing against Donald Trump. Others may be coming after this ruling. You know, it's not about people criticizing Donald Trump. Trump can take criticism. It's about lying and getting caught. Now Mark Elias, the Democrat lawyer, is whining that ABC bent the knee. Well, no, Mark, they got held accountable for spreading falsehood. That's what really happened here. And let's be honest, folks, this settlement, it has to sting, doesn't it? You don't pay $15 million and issue a public apology unless you know you're in the wrong, plus the $1 million in legal fees as well. But the liberal media, they never want to admit that. And they ponied up the $15 million, which was a very inexpensive way to avoid this trial and potentially really losing, because now they're of course saying, well, we didn't admit wrong. We just agree that it's in everyone's best interest to not go to trial, to put this to bed and move on. Sure, yeah. One other big story here before we go today: big tech, free speech, national security. It's all tangled up in a mess around TikTok. And TikTok is heading to the U.S. Supreme Court to fight for its survival here in the U.S. TikTok is asking the U.S. Supreme Court to block a law that would force its Chinese parent company, ByteDance, to sell off the app by January the 19th or face a total ban in the United States. Now, this law, passed by Congress, signed by President Joe Biden in April, is set to go in effect the day before President-elect Donald Trump is inaugurated. Their argument is they claim that the law violates the First Amendment and would shut down one of America's most popular speech platforms. They're throwing out big numbers, saying it'll impact 170 million American users, and they're asking the court to issue an injunction by January the 6th. We'll see what happens. That's it for today's show. Tara's up next, followed by Mike Gallagher, Bill Frady, Charlie James, and Mark Levin wraps things up tonight. We're back again tomorrow at 5 a.m. for your first cup of coffee in Sunrise, Carolina. Until then, remember, folks, God's got this. He's still in control. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Firmin Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at MyPillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.